We have a great culture. It was great 25 years ago when I joined. That kind of really sealed the deal for me on why I was really hoping to get an offer and work here. Really re-energizing our guests. We're providing brands that are resonating with them at great values. And it's interesting because, we still have the same work to do and the same tasks, but it's how we go about it. And you kind of let go of all the drama and the extra, and you can just focus right in on, what's the reality of the situation and what do we need to do about it. And probably the first aha moment for me was that I'm not my mind, right? The voice in the head. I'm a work in progress. I'm learning every day. I'm a person it's always been important to me that, I learn and I grow and kind of come into the best version of myself.
So you are the CFO for Bealls Inc.
Yep.
And how long have you been doing that job?
So I've been doing that job 4 years.
Yep.
Flew by. Yeah.
Yep, good. And so, a lot of things happening out there in general, a lot of changes happening with AI. The economy is kind of unpredictable. It's in a weird place right now with different things going on. Let's talk economics for a few minutes, maybe to kick things off. What are your thoughts on what's happening economically?
Yeah. There's a lot going on, a lot of uncertainty about the future for sure. And, we're starting to see inflation reaccelerate, which is a little challenging for, the consumer. I mean, we've had a few years of high inflation. A few summers ago, prices were going up 9%. So that's a challenge. At the same time, although unemployment's still low, the job market seems to be slowing down the past 3 months. So, you kind of see some things slowing down, but inflation going up. And that's a little bit of a difficult place to be because the Federal Reserve, it's two different actions to take care of each of those, right? So they're in conflict right now. And actually, by the time we're done filming this, we'll be hearing from the Federal Reserve this afternoon. So, all eyes are kind of on them to see what they're going to do with interest rates today.
And you're expecting a 1/4 point interest rate decrease, right?
Decrease. And that seems to be, kind of the consensus of what I've been reading across articles.
Does that make any sense?
Not if you want to fight inflation.
Right. And so what's more important than that?
Yeah. So it depends. It seems like there's two schools of thought at the Federal Reserve. So you have one school of thought where they want to fight the inflation because they think that's the more difficult challenge for the economy and for consumers. And then you have another school of thought that thinks that, if that's coming from the tariffs, they think that'll be a one-time and then inflation will come back down on its own. So because of those two differences of opinions, we're starting to see differences in how people might vote.
Do you really think they think that, or do you think that they don't care about inflation because it reduces the amount of interest that they're going to have to pay on their debt? Their $35-40 trillion in debt becomes less money if there's significant inflation that occurs. I mean, it seems like they've got some self-serving reasons, perhaps, for not really seeming to care about this inflation issue that's directly impacting Americans and the economy and people. I mean, it's really hurting people.
Yeah, and it's been going on for multiple years.
Yeah.
So, and the longer it goes on, the more challenging it is. And, really the economy's still growing, but, a lot of that could be coming from wealthier people versus, the low to mid income. So, I think they've been tightening their belt now for multiple years. And at some point, something's got to give.
Yeah, and what is that thing? What's going to give?
I think you get to the point where inflation is just so high that they have to take action on it. Or if unemployment gets really, really high, and people don't have jobs, then they can't afford. So, right now, since the job market's been good, unemployment's low, people have been able to get by. So
right.
They're relying on that. So, if the economy slows down and companies downsize, I think that's going to have a big impact.
I guess in terms of the current kind of what's happening out there, what are some of the other metrics that you are looking at? I mean, is consumer credit health, or like what are some of the other things that are kind of giving you clues as to how we should be planning our business and kind of what's happening from a consumer standpoint?
Yep. Yeah. So I look at consumer health, what their balance sheets are looking like, how much debt levels, if they're having trouble making payments on their borrowings, that would be a warning flag. I also look at consumer sentiment because, as you were talking earlier, sometimes it's about people's mentality and what they're thinking about the future. And it may not be the reality of the data, but if that's how people are feeling, it could almost be like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I also track that pretty carefully on the data metrics.
And what are you seeing?
I'm seeing that, consumers are still spending, but they're nervous. They're nervous about inflation. They're nervous about the job market's been slowing down the past 3 or 4 months, so that's on their mind. Haven't heard a lot about AI in those readings yet, but I'm sure that will start filtering in soon as mainstream media starts picking up more of that.
Yeah. If there's one thing they're good at is generating fear amongst the Gen Pop. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, in terms of credit card debt and just debt in general, and maybe like spending, I guess there's been a shift from after COVID. There was a lot of cash. There were people, the government had printed a lot of money, and so people were spending more cash, and then it went to credit cards, and then I guess there's a bit of a migration away from credit cards now as people kind of get, over the credit card fees, and as their personal debt kind of spikes up, and we're seeing more buy now, pay later with things like, or what are some of those, so what are you seeing in terms of consumer spending and debt specifically?
Yeah, we're seeing all that. And as you mentioned, so, coming out of COVID, there was all the stimulus money and people had cash. They used it to pay down some of the debt. So they were actually coming out of COVID in a pretty good place with debt. So they, used some of that to strengthen their financial position. And then they saved some. But then as, the inflation really, got high for multiple years, they went right through the cash spending, and they did turn to expensive credit card debt. Again, you kind of see the difference. You kind of have to look a level lower and kind of look at the different income levels. Again, the low to middle income consumer is the one that has, gone through that cash because of price increases from inflation, and they're the ones that are struggling more with the debt. On the surface level, it might seem like it's not that big of a deal yet, but when you get down to, families and individuals, there's quite a difference in the economy. It's
right.
a big divergence.
The wealthier and the corporations, wealthier people and corporations have more cash, but the what you would call the lower class has more debt, and so it's kind of balancing out a bit, but it's getting tougher and tougher on hardworking people.
Hardworking people.
Yeah.
Yep. And everyone's looking for value, and our mission is, outfit the family for less, so consumers are looking for value, especially, in the current environment. They're trying to stretch those dollars.
Right. Yeah. If there's one thing that's been consistent for eternity, it is that people look for value. Yeah. Whether it doesn't matter what that is. And so, we're in a good place for that, obviously. So, I think some of the risks are going to impact other people more than they would impact us. We're obviously, when you're in the value channel and that's kind of your business, a lot of these risks they're not as threatening as they might be if you were in a mid-tier kind of a, that type of business. So, and our business has been pretty strong, actually. So do you want to talk a little bit about the year that we've just had?
Yeah, sure. It's been quite a wild ride this past year.
Yeah.
Our fiscal year runs from August through July, so that's different than a lot of companies. And, the first half of the year, we were impacted by a lot of big hurricanes last year. And then coming out of that, there were some winter storms. And then, the large tariffs were initially launched in April. So, business was challenging the first half of the year. And we put an action plan in right away. As I mentioned, we do scenario planning. So, we're very agile and adept. And we didn't wait, as soon as we saw what was going on following the hurricanes, we put that action plan in. We deferred some projects and spending, and, really looked at efficiencies and from a cost perspective across the business. And then, the spring season, the trend turned around, and business improved. So it was, like two different stories between the first half of the year and the second half of the year. But
And what do you credit that to?
I credit that to a few things. We a lot of the inventory management and strategies that the business put into place really took hold in the spring. We had new marketing campaigns. We celebrated our 110th anniversary, so with the loyalty campaign as well, really re-energizing our guests. We're providing brands that are resonating with them at great values. So I think you had a lot of that happening. At the same time, perhaps some consumers were trying to spend ahead of tariff increases because, they were hearing about that in the news. So, maybe there was a bit of that going on as well.
Okay. And good. You were on it. You were walking us through the year.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, so then, it was two halves of the year. But, we ended in a strong financial position. From a cash perspective. And, that's really part of who we are as a company. And one of the things that I learned when I interviewed with your dad 25 years ago was, let's not carry debt. Let's keep cash for a rainy day to help us through a difficult time period. And let's reinvest in the business. So, as we've saved the cash, we're in a good position to identify, where to grow, where to invest, what's going to have the best return on that investment. So it's kind of a self-generating business model from a financial perspective. And, that really helps in times of uncertainty to know that you have that financial strength at the foundation.
Yeah. What are some of the other positives, do you think, that we have kind of going for us at this point in time?
I think we have, great loyal guests. And, that's the most important thing, that, we're serving them how they want to be served, and, the brands and the values. So to me, that's the most important. From a company perspective, in addition to the financial strength, I feel that you've developed a great team. And, we have a great culture. It was great 25 years ago when I joined. That was another thing that I spoke to your dad about. And, that kind of really sealed the deal for me on why I was really hoping to get an offer and work here. It was the culture of the company as well as the integrity and the financial strength. So I think we have a lot going for us as a company.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the last kind of 4 or 5 years for you? What has that been like for you here at Bealls?
Yeah. So I'm a person it's always been important to me that, I learn and I grow and kind of come into the best version of myself. And really the past 4 to 5 years on the journey that you've taken us all on, it's really just supercharged that. We have read a lot of books, had a lot of conversations, and just through daily practice, a lot of self-awareness. And I get really excited about it because I've seen the value. I'm a work in progress. I'm learning every day, still having kind of aha moments. But I feel some of the benefits are, calmer, less stress, more efficient, more creative, better connections and relationships with people. So once you start to feel those benefits, you're like, I don't want to do how I used to do it, right? So, and it's interesting because, we still have the same work to do and the same tasks, but it's how we go about it. It's you kind of let go of all the drama and the extra, and you can just focus right in on, what's the reality of the situation and what do we need to do about it? What are our different scenarios? So it's just we took a culture that was great, and it's evolving, and even better.
Yeah, what were some of the things that flipped for you that where you changed your perspective on things or whatever? What really changed for you in the way that you look at things that's been helpful?
I mean, the biggest and probably the first aha moment for me was, that I'm not my mind, right? The voice in the head. And once I started being aware of, what that voice was and kind of what some of my habits were, it's kind of empowering because you're like, I don't have to think that way. I don't just have to, so you kind of take control of your own response to situations. And that's where, I'm not spending as much time in my head, with the drama, and, I can just, focus. And, in the past, it was hard to stay present, because my mind would be like, oh, in that meeting, this came up, and you're kind of, reliving it, which isn't helping the present moment. Or I'd be worried about the future, right? What if this happens? What if that happens? And it's different than scenario planning, right? Scenario planning is like, okay, here's what we're going to do if these situations occur. But the not staying present is where you're worried about it, right? Instead of planning your action, I was spending too much time just worrying. And that's draining.
Yeah, it is for sure.
Yeah. So that was probably the biggest and earliest aha moment for me.
I guess we're coming up into the holidays, right? So we're going to have a lot of good family time and opportunity to practice some of the practices that that we've learned. So which ones are kind of sticking out for you at this point?
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to just pick one because they're all important and they all kind of interweave. But one that I continue to come back to is compassion. Compassion for myself is what I had to learn first, because I tend to be very hard on myself, kind of pick apart, why'd you do this and that. And so reminding myself to have that compassion. And then I was able to have more compassion for other people once I could, offer myself that. And that's really helped at work and in the personal life is instead of reacting, negatively, it's like, well, if I put myself in this person's shoes and I can kind of see where they're coming from versus, having my own opinion and thinking I'm 100% right.
And
Yeah.
what does that look like for you, compassion as it relates to yourself or for other people? Like, what does the word kind of mean for you? Does it mean, what does it mean?
For myself, it's kind of like, give yourself a break. You're human. No one's perfect. You're not going to get it right every time, and live and learn, right? That's behind me now. Whatever I said or mistake that I made, live and learn. And being able to accept that in myself helps me with my team members and other people because, once I saw that in myself, I could see other people were beating themselves up for, a mistake that they made. And I think it's very important that we create an environment where people can flex and learn and grow, and that takes some risk, and it means there'll be some mistakes, and I want people to learn from them. I don't want them to beat themselves up, right? So I think once I could see that in myself, helping others.
Yeah, cool. So what do you see kind of next happening back to retail? Where are we heading? And I guess things are probably going to continue to get more experiential, right? I mean, people are going to want to, when they go shop and have a great experience, whatever that might be within whatever store that they're going into. Obviously, value is going to continue to be a huge part of what people seek. I always think of shopping as primarily, it's not always, but more often it's the female of the household shopping, and the male is kind of it's kind of like hunting is to the male as shopping is to the female, kind of a thing. And so I don't feel like it's going away, brick and mortar. I feel like it's something that people enjoy doing, male or female, enjoy doing, getting out there and shopping and seeing and touching the product. It's just going to get so much easier to do once AI kind of takes over. If we thought that the e-commerce was a big jump in terms of the ease of which you can obtain product and have it very quickly shipped to you, AI is really going to speed that up even more. And so I guess, looking out into the future of retail with a company like us, or just in general, like what are you seeing, and what does a company like Bealls need to do to adapt to a changing environment?
Yeah, I see the same things that you do. My opinion is there's still going to be a place for brick and mortar. Um, I'm a shopper. I enjoy shopping. I like to, be in store. I also do my fair share online, right? So I think there's a place for different experiences. And we've got to, follow the trends on what the consumer wants, and how they want it, just like we have for, the past 110 years. I do think AI, might make it more tailored, more individualized, where, guests are more efficiently finding what they want and desire. But I do think that there is a place for brick and mortar. And I think it has to be an environment people want to go to, right? They have to have a reason to want to drive there and be in the store. And it's not just the product, it's, the, associates, kind of building that relationship with associates as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if there's no place for brick and mortar, we've got big problems.
Right.
There's big problems from a commercial real estate standpoint, from just a retail in general, from an economic standpoint. You're talking,
Yeah, a lot of jobs.
yeah, if AI takes away that, then you're talking about a complete collapse. Real estate, commercial real estate is very expensive right now. It's very high. It's almost at an all-time high. It's kind of coming off of the peak right now, and I think a lot of economists see commercial real estate as much of a threat as residential real estate was back in '06, '07. And so there's some fear there, I think. I don't, I'm more concerned about AI than I am commercial real estate. But yeah, if that were to come down due to AI, and, space started to become free, and companies that were in debt, became kind of started to go out of business due to this unemployment and due to reduced consumer shopping behavior, then you're talking about an environment that is just absolutely brutal. You're talking about, and of course, value is where you would need to be in that type of an environment. So, yeah, I don't foresee commercial real estate crashing necessarily, but definitely a lot of changes upcoming in the near future in ways. And I feel like there's the Fortune 500 might become the Fortune 50, and you've got all of these new kind of AI startups that are going to be just taking over. And then a lot of companies just seems like are going to become relatively obsolete with the rise of artificial intelligence, and what does that shift? How quickly does that shift happen? How much panic is there, globally and in America, as that kind of as those changes are taking place, and you've got companies failing, companies rising, massive wealth transfers are gonna start to occur. So it'll be pretty interesting, but I'm with you. I don't think it's important to focus on the things that are not going to change, and to really kind of try to remember what it is that people are always going to want, and that in-store shopping experience is certainly one, value is certainly another. The experience, the connection with an actual human being that you can have, the thrill of the hunt, the great brands. I don't think that's going to go away. People are still pretty attached to their brands. So yeah, it's important in times of change to not only think about how things are going to be changing in the future. That part is more difficult to predict, but to also really focus on what's not going to change. So,
Yeah, that's good wisdom.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So yeah, it's so what else is on your mind? I mean, what are some of the other topics that you were thinking about as it related to this conversation?
We've really touched on a lot of it between the economy and the culture. I guess I do spend a good amount of time keeping current on the economy, as you mentioned. I also spend a lot of time involved in decisions on where we reinvest the cash. So going back to your dad, it was important that we reinvest in the business and reinvent the business. And from a financial perspective, we're looking at all these competing priorities, and how do we figure out what we want to spend money on, right? So I have a team of people that are looking at the projects and what the investment is, what the return is, and then I work with the senior vice presidents, and we agree on what's most important and what direction we're going to go. And you set your budget at the beginning of the year, and then the next day, it's changing, right? So, we have this process of, reforecasting often, so that we make sure that we're investing in the right things for the company's future and for our guests.
Yeah, and it seems like we're going to have a lot of investment opportunities coming up in the next 5 years. And so I do agree with you that building cash right now seems like a very appropriate strategy, and kind of not. I know that reinvesting in the business is always something that has been a huge part of the company, and a belief that leads to long-term success. And if you stop doing that for any period of time, then it doesn't bode well for the future, of course. At the same time, there are times when cutting back on your spending is wise. And I feel like we're at one of those points in time right now, and that spending less right now, which is what we're doing, and adding some cash to the balance sheet and being ready for what's to come is pretty critical in a time like this. And so we're fortunate to be in a position that we're able to do that and to take advantage of what I think will be opportunities in the not too distant future, in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And I mean, we're going to need a new distribution center, very likely out in Kentucky or Tennessee, kind of in that area. Those aren't cheap. I think there's going to be people that are going to be going out of business. And so for us to be able to snap up and open a whole bunch of new stores in a short period of time will probably be important. And those are sometimes difficult to predict when that's going to happen, but new stores is always an expense. Technology is always an expense. When you talk about things like artificial intelligence and kind of getting prepared for what the future might look like, I can see a lot of people, a lot of VPs from within our organization approaching your office and saying, "Hey, Alison, I've got a great AI solution that's going to help me and make everybody more efficient, and it's going to cost, $5 million. So can I do it? Do we have any money to do it? And so, being able to prepare for, or whatever, 50,000, whatever the number is, do we have the money to be able to, to take advantage of those opportunities? And then if there is some type of a situation where there's high unemployment and companies' earnings are dropping and there's a recession and there's fear out there, and people stop shopping for retail as much, even at the value sector. If our sales start to decline, if our profitability starts to decline, it's usually restaurants and retail during a recession, and just kind of those kind of categories of discretionary income and of spending. And will we have enough cash to be able to see us through a period of dark economic times? And certainly in the last 110 years, there's been times where we've I think we learned an early lesson with the Great Recession back in the late 20s, early 30s, of not being over leveraged, and our founder learned that lesson. And so it's having enough cash to kind of get you through the challenging times is certainly something that we're always going to want to have as well. So it's we always should reinvest and always, but there are times too when it makes more sense to kind of pull back.
Absolutely, yeah. And going back to the conversation about the past fiscal year, that was, really the focus. We were, quickly pulling into that mode where we were pulling back, ended the year, increasing the cash reserve. And we're kind of waiting for those right opportunities. As you said, the real estate market will change, and I expect we'll be able to go into, high growth mode, reopening stores once those deals are available and make sense. And, you called out a few other things on the horizon that, we've got to make sure we've got the cash to take care of. So, that's just a foundational thing for us in finances. Don't borrow, don't leverage, be over leveraged, and, have cash. And, that cash not only sees us through a dark period with the economy, but then it allows us to be really agile as opportunities come up. And, we've done that several times coming out of different economic periods.
Yep, no doubt about it. Okay, so they lowered rates by a quarter point, from 4 to 4.25 from.
Yep. So that's what we were expecting to see from the Federal Reserve today.
Yeah.
So it must be 2:00.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, did we miss anything, or do you think that kind of covers it? We're coming up on next week is the anniversary of the first hurricane. It wasn't Milton, it was the other one, Helene. And then 2 weeks after that is Milton. And so it'll be nice to comp those numbers for sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's no storms this year.
Yeah, hopefully no storms, knock on wood.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah. But I think we've covered a lot of territory today.
Yeah.
So just, very grateful, to your dad for the opportunity 25 years ago, and to you, this opportunity to step up 4 years ago, and lots of learning, and you provide feedback, which pushes me to move forward.
Good. Perfect. Okay. Well, we appreciate you, Alison. Appreciate everything that you do for the company. It's been, I think, you bring a kind of a certainly a peace and a calm and to the job that you do, and that I think is a great part of our culture. Eckhart Tolle might refer to it as the frequency holders. The people that are generally relatively stable and don't get too worked up like I do about AI and unemployment in the near future. So thank you for being a great balance and a great team member. And I know how much people enjoy working for you and working with you. So you've just been a great member of our team here for the last bunch of years. So really appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
We have a great team.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Good.
Yep.
Good. All right. We'll close it with that. Thank you, Ryan.